Welcome to 20-Meter Restart Agree to Disagree Rugby League Podcast. I'm Hoonz.
And I'm Nick.
And we would like to say good morning.
All right, scores from the weekend. The Tigers over the Cowboys 20-12. The Panthers over the Knights 29-18. The Bulldogs defeated Parramatta 20 points to 12. The Warriors lost at home to the Sydney Roosters 32-0. Melbourne Storm defeated the Titans 28-14. Manly Seagulls beat the Broncos 38-24. The Rabbitohs over the Dragons 24-10. And finally, the Cronulla Sharks over the Canberra Raiders 24-16. Hoonz, which team impressed you the most?
Well, Nick, the team that impressed me the most was the Rabbitohs. The South Sydney Rabbitohs were fantastic in the weekend against the table-topping Dragons, St. George Illawarra. If you watch that game, I thought the Bunnies played a perfect defensive game. They nullified a lot of the Dragons' attack. The Dragons had a lot of ball down the 20-meter, down their end of the 20-meter attacking zone, and the Bunnies held out, especially in that first half. With Sam Burgess back, I must commend them, especially his two brothers as well. They were just powerhouses. They got them forward. Damien Cook out of dummy half, dangerous. You know, I've been hyping Sam Burgess up a lot, but he just deserves the credit because he did what I said that he should do, was nullify some of the aggression, but still be an enforcer in the game and against the Dragons. And Inglis was Inglis, a good commander. They were fantastic, man. The Bunnies are real contenders, I reckon, this year. They've proven it, and it's shades of 2014.
Okay, big call. Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree with you. Rabbitohs, they're defending the line, as you said, was just phenomenal. They were just so hungry for it.
Yeah, so that's your team that impressed you the most?
The Rabbitohs,
yep.
No doubt. They were just way too strong for such an informed Dragons team. They really had to come out and prove themselves there, and I feel as if they did. I feel as if they really proved they're a threat to this competition this year. So can't argue against that.
Yeah, man.
All right, first point of the podcast, which is a pretty big one. Cameron Smith being suspended for the first time in his career. What are your thoughts on that? The wishbone tackle on Kevin Proctor.
The wishbone tackle. I think this might be his second time. I remember in 2008 grand final, he was suspended for that grand final, if you remember correctly, because they lost 40-0 without Cameron Smith, the Melbourne Storm.
Okay.
Way back then.
My 7-year-old self did not remember that.
That's
my mistake.
Oh, sorry, Nick. I forgot about that. Yeah, I think it's well deservingly. I think that he can't get away with things like that, especially the tackle and after we saw it. I didn't think too much of it, but at the end of the day, there was, Melbourne has a tactic of wrestling, and they brought that into the game. And sometimes I think they kind of push the boundaries, and Cameron Smith got caught on it because Kevin Proctor actually came out of that with a hamstring injury.
Yeah.
So, Cameron said that there was no intention. It didn't look malicious. You know when someone's actually doing it maliciously. He's got to have a ban just like everybody else. Yeah. And I think 2-game ban or 1-game ban. I think he got a 1-week ban, but he needs something. What is your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it wasn't malicious at all. I don't think Cameron Smith went into it with the intent to hurt Kevin Proctor.
Yep.
But at the same time, like by definition of the rules, there is no way that is not a wishbone tackle, and that is definitely a suspension. So, I'm not sure what he was thinking, really. I mean, see, if he was aggressive, if he wanted to hurt Kevin Proctor, then I guess mission accomplished. But he didn't look like that's what he wanted to do.
Yep.
Sort of just seemed aimless and just like a complete mind explosion.
I'm thinking fatigue. You reckon? Was it just one of those moments where, when you're fatigued out on that field, you just do silly things and you don't really think about it until after the fact. And I'm thinking maybe Cameron was fatigued at the time because it was just a stupid play, unnecessary tackle.
But we're talking about Cameron Smith here. When has he ever done that before?
Yeah. No,
So
his old body, man. I think
put it down to age,
his old age.
Yeah, well, that's the only really...
Because I've seen him slow down a lot more than usual.
Yep. Okay. It's not out of the question. Moving on, and Michael Maguire has been given the coaching role in New Zealand Test team. So, thoughts on that, Hoonz?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I think I'm more qualified since I'm a Kiwi.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But Michael Maguire as coach, I really wanted Laurie Daly there, but it was a win-win situation for the Kiwis anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Maguire, premiership winner, Super League premiership winner as well.
Yeah.
So you see those guys, you see those coaches putting their hands up. Even Ades Hasler was up for grabs and Jeff Tuvey, but they both pulled out because they have NRL ambitions still.
Yep.
It's fantastic that we had the quality of coaches applying. I know that I'm kind of half and half with it should be a Kiwis coach coaching a Kiwis side, but in the same breath, I think that it would be refreshing to have an Australian coach, especially at the caliber, a high level, like a coach like Michael Maguire, who can get the best out of a lot of players.
Yep.
I can see a lot of changes coming through that Kiwis camp, and some old veterans like Isaac Luke, who's just been playing phenomenally well this year. It's fantastic, man. I feel good about it. David Kidwell was useless. I don't care what anyone thinks. I just think that he was a detriment to the team. Michael Maguire, I can see Michael Maguire bringing back somebody like the great Benji Marshall into the side, considering in my eyes he's the best New Zealand half running around right now.
You can't even question
Yeah, no. He's just been fantastic for the Tigers.
Yep.
Look at them. They're winning.
Yep.
That's the thing that I feel. And Benji has just developed so much on his game. He's worked on his game.
He's so much more mature in his
So
play style.
composed now.
Yeah.
And you can see it. And now the Tigers, that's a good one because the Tigers, you look at them. They're so composed under the leadership of Benji Marshall.
Yep.
And they look lost without him if he's not on the field. So that's telling me that without Benji now, I don't know if the Tigers might struggle, but Michael Maguire can pull those guys through. Jesse Bromwich and Kevin Proctor, he already said that he'll bring those guys back after the suspension last year and for the World Cup, because that World Cup, Nick,
That was
it was a disgrace.
Yeah.
It was a disgrace. David Kidwell should never have been coach. I think he's won 3 out of 10 games. That's, as a New Zealander, as a Kiwi, I was disappointed, and that's not the direction, considering we took 1,000 steps forward and we took another 2,000 back.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough.
What about you, Nick? What's your opinion, considering you're an Australian?
Oh, look, as an outsider, obviously they did need a new coach. They needed some big changes to that squad. I think definitely selecting Benji would be a change that's needed. I think his leadership.
Yeah, he's a winner.
Is exactly that backline needs it. That New Zealand backline will need someone like Benji Marshall, and I don't see anyone else to fill that role. So, and as you said, he's got success. He's got a record behind him. I don't think David Kidwell had as much of a record behind him as Michael Maguire does.
No, David Kidwell was just useless. You heard me.
I mean, you can't. He's done what every coach dreams to do in the NRL. He's won a premiership.
Yep.
That's why you coach in the NRL, is to win that premiership with your team, and he's done that. That's the highest status you can get as a coach. So, I mean, he is one of the most qualified coaches going around. Perfect for the job, in my opinion. Moving on, and there's a bit of speculation around the Broncos this week on whether Jack Bird will be playing.
Okay.
They're looking at axing him. So, your thoughts on Jack Bird at the moment?
To be honest, what was he on? $3 million deal, was it?
Was it $3 million for 4 years? I think
Yeah.
it was something of that stature.
He hasn't lived up to it.
No,
Simple.
at all.
He hasn't lived up to it.
No.
And I don't know if it's first year jitters with a new club, But when you're a high-profile player, or especially with that amount of money that the Broncos could actually spend on somebody else, and you come into the club and you haven't been performing so well, considering you won a premiership with the Sharks, and you were one of their best players over there too, playing centre or maybe reverted to a fullback road or the halves or even a lock forward.
Yep.
That's the thing, is that when the expectation's on you, you should step up, but he hasn't been stepping up. And, it's been a detriment to the Broncos because you look at their lineup, I feel like that they're weak.
Yeah.
Especially in the halves role. And now then there's no cohesion, especially with the injuries to Josh Maguire, Matt Gillett. Yep.
And I think with two running halves as well in Jack Bird three running halves if you include Cody and Milford. How are you supposed to utilise a centre like James Roberts, or how are you supposed to utilise a winger like Corey Oates when they're not getting the ball they need? So, it's almost like you're wasting your backline with two halves like that, or three halves like that, I should say.
Exactly.
And just to correct our start there, he's on a $3.5 million.
That's even worse.
That is much worse.
That's much worse.
That is much, much worse.
I know that you're a Bronco supporter. You love the Broncos.
Yeah.
What's your gut feeling, your thoughts on it?
$175,000 a year we're paying for him, and we're thinking of benching him because he's not performing. Like, how disgraceful is that?
What's it even makes matters worse is that Benji Marshall came last year for, $100,000?
I think it was exactly $100,000.
Yeah, and look at what he did for the Broncos.
So would you say Jack Bird is 9 times better than Benji Marshall right now? No, not at all.
No.
He's probably 9 times worse than Benji Marshall.
What's even more worse is that Benji's been playing fantastically well for the Tigers on less money.
What I am seeing there, I sort of getting the vibe that Jack Bird's not comfortable at the Broncos. I think he's not exactly setting into their culture as well as he did at Cronulla. And I think that kind of discomfort can really get into your head, especially when you're sort of young and maturing, like Jack Bird is, and thrown into the halves as well, nonetheless. He had no experience in the halves in the NRL previously to playing for the Broncos. And Wayne Bennett said, here you go, play 5'8" or play halfback. Thanks. It doesn't seem completely fair on him if he's already uncomfortable in the environment. And then all of a sudden there's all these added pressures to him. I think it's not fair to expect him to perform, extremely well. So I think benching him or axing him for a few weeks is probably what he needs. I think what I've got here is Andrew McCulloch has actually said that's really the right thing to do. Just get him away from the spotlight for a little bit. Just let him get his mind and body in the right place, and then he'll come back and he'll be good as ever. So to me, that kind of makes sense, and I kind of agree with that ideology. At the minute, I don't think he should be playing for the next few weeks at least, until he fixes his discomfort in the Broncos culture.
What makes matters worse, actually, I just thought about it. Jordan Kahu hasn't been playing ever since his injury, I think, start of the season. So
that's correct.
I don't know. How well is the Broncos' depth? That's the problem.
Look, he doesn't go incredibly far. I think they've backed a lot in their starting lineup, and rightfully so. I think it is pretty unfortunate to be facing the sort of injuries the Broncos are right now. As you said, Jordan Kahu out, Matt Gillett, Josh Maguire out. Those are really really massive losses to the Broncos side, and you wouldn't expect that to happen. Two of your star players and your kicker. I wouldn't put Jordan Kahu as a star player just yet for the Broncos, but still a significant part of the team. To lose those sort of three players in the same part of the season, to me, seems pretty unlucky. That's just unfortunate, and there's no real way you can plan around that. So I'm not going to hold anything against the Broncos recruiting officers for not having enough depth there, because I think Jaden Sewer's playing all right in the second row. I think stepping in for Matt Gillett, he's obviously not as much of a defensive asset as Gillett was, but I think in attack and even in defence, he's still very solid. He's still a very good second rower, and he's growing as a player, and he's filling that role. So we're not completely missing. If just Josh Maguire was out, or just Matt Gillett was out, or just Jordan Kahu was out, we'd be all right. We'd manage. We'd find replacements, shuffle the roster, and manage. But with all three out at the same time, you've lost 2/3 of your back row and your kicker. That's really significant, and it's just unlucky. And there's sort of no form of planning I see around that.
Yeah.
Now moving on, this is some breaking news that has come in after we've started the podcast, which is Cameron Smith set to retire from all representative footy effective immediately. He will not play for Queensland this year. Will not play for Australia again. Hoonz, what are your thoughts on that?
It's mind-boggling, mind-blowing. I did not expect that at all. Yeah, he's one of the greatest players of all time. I would put him number 2 after Jonathan Thurston, but that's just me being biased. But he could be 1 as well. Yeah, that's big news, isn't it? With Cameron Smith announcing his retirement, we'll talk about Queensland since Origin's just around the corner.
Yep.
With the retirement of Cameron Smith, you already had the retirement of Jonathan Thurston and Cooper Cronk last season. I don't know, man. I think Queensland's in trouble.
Once again, see, sort of a similar situation to the Broncos, except much more extreme. You've lost 3 of your massive star players.
That's right. 3 champions. Just in one after the other.
three of the best players to ever step foot on that rugby league field in 1 year. So it does seem like it's going to be a bit of a leap for him to really pull this out of the bag and win this series.
I just feel like that New South Wales would be clapping like,
yeah. Now, obviously, there's sort of speculation around the timing of it following an immediate suspension. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's a correlation between Cameron Smith being suspended and
not at all. I actually not at all. I believe that Cameron Smith has probably already been thinking about it. I think he knows his body. He's been an Ironman for such a long time in our game. He really gets injured, and I don't think there's any correlation between him getting suspended and the announcement. I reckon he already probably pre-planned it.
But if he had pre-planned it, if he had been thinking about it, why wasn't he thinking about it last year, or at least early in this year? Why has he waited until 3 weeks before Origin to say, you know what, I'm not playing this year? To me, it seems sort of impulsive in a way. And I know he's getting old, and maybe it has been on his mind for a while. But to pull out right now, 3 weeks before Origin play, for the Origin game, it seems kind of poorly timed on his end. And I feel as if there's more to it than just, old age and him not feeling ready for it.
Nah, I disagree. I feel like that he has known, but I don't think he would probably like to admit that it was his time up until now. I just feel like that, knowing how Cameron Smith is, I think that he knew that Origin was around the corner, and if he didn't announce it before, and he did come into Origin, and we don't see the Cameron Smith that we all know, I think he would regret it. And I feel that I think it's good timing because it's still 3 weeks away. At least now the other hookers in the game, Queensland hookers, they can fight for it in 3 weeks. They've got 3 games to prove themselves to see who's in front. I think Andrew McCulloch is in front.
I think there's no way you can't pick Andrew McCulloch.
Well, purely the fact that he's probably the most closest to a Cameron Smith style of play. But you can't replace a champion. That's the problem that they're going to face. We're going to see if Andrew McCulloch, but then there's potentially Jake Granville, Jake Friend. Who else would be in there for Queensland? Oh, I know those 3 will probably be the top 3 contenders.
Hard to look outside of them, isn't it?
But I think McCulloch won. I think Friend should be second, deservingly, and I believe Granville's actually at the bottom of the pile.
Just out of form, realistically.
Way out of form.
Yeah. So look, I agree. I think for the skill set and the workhorse attitude, there's no way McCulloch doesn't fit Cameron Smith's role in that sense. Andrew McCulloch was, I can't remember what position he finished in last year. I think he was about 5th or 6th in tackles made, and he missed about 10 rounds. That's such a phenomenal trait. He was so far ahead in tackles.
Well, we all know that Origin is based on defence.
Exactly.
And the intensity.
And he's proven, he's actually, in my opinion anyway, a stronger defender than Cameron Smith. In a one-on-one scenario, I'd probably back Andrew McCulloch more than Cameron Smith.
I would back... Oh,
I'd back them both.
No, now I'd back McCulloch only because I feel like the Cameron Smith, that younger Cameron Smith, it's not even comparison. It's not even close.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
But still,
but now, I would back McCulloch.
I feel as if McCulloch would fit the skill set Cameron Smith has, but he wouldn't fit the leadership that Cameron Smith has.
And I feel like the composure, the timing off and on the ball.
Yeah.
Out of the dummy half roll. It just feels like he has all the time in the world. And no team could shut him out.
No.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it in Origin. The only time that I saw that New South Wales was a threat was when Angie Johns was playing. That's it.
Yep.
And there's nothing else really to it about New South Wales because they've got 2014 where they finally broke through, but to lose back to back again, that doesn't prove anything to me.
No,
it was probably one of those years where it was Queensland took it for granted.
To me, what is that one in? It was 2006. Queensland started winning.
Yeah,
wasn't
exactly. In 2014, and
So
2014 was when New
12
South
years.
Wales. Yeah, exactly. Of
it? And
domination.
they've won one.
Yeah.
New South Wales. So 1 to 12 to me seems like an anomaly. That doesn't seem like they really proved themselves.
No, because you had to win back to back to prove yourself, and they didn't.
But this year, they are probably favourites. Again, they were favourites last year, but I think their odds have probably even improved this year.
Well, with the retirement of all three champions,
Smith, Cronk, and Thurston.
That's right. Because just imagine Slater came out and said, "Yeah, I'm retiring." I think that he'll retire after this series.
Yep.
Because Queensland can't lose. If they lose Slater, they are screwed.
They're in big trouble. The press conference for Cameron Smith announcing his retirement is, I think, in about 10 to 15 minutes. So
Wow.
we will wrap up the podcast before it comes to that.
Yeah.
Because I would love to watch that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I think we've touched on all the topics I wanted to touch on. Do you have anything you wanted to add to it?
No, I think we did an admirable job so far without Ra this week.
Without trying to organise ourselves and scramble it together.
Yeah, it was really good, man.
I think we've done all right. We've talked for a long time, so I think we'll move on to our tips now.
Yeah, go for it.
So first round, the Penrith Panthers versus the West Tigers at Panthers Stadium. Who have you got?
That's a tough one.
Thursday, 17th of May.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's one of those ones where it can go either way.
Yep.
I'm gonna back Ivan Cleary beating his son.
Yep.
I'm gonna back the Tigers and then Tigers defense because what I witnessed when they destroyed my Cowboys, and to be honest, it should have been a bigger score. I felt like during the game we made too many errors against the Tigers missed a lot of defense, a lot of one-on-one tackles, a lot of tackles, but they just cover for each other.
Yep.
And I seen the Panthers vulnerable, obviously against the Cowboys. And if the Tigers can get off to a great start, and with the leadership of Russell Packer, you touched on that last week.
Yep.
And Russell Packer back with Ben Matalina up front. Wow.
I think to me, I don't mean to have a dig at you here, Hoonz, but I think the Tigers were unlucky to not win by more.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And Leichhardt over is our hoodoo.
Exactly.
It's our hoodoo. But I will always back my Cowboys.
Thurston's never won in Sydney against the West Tigers.
Sydney.
I believe the stat was Sydney, as opposed to just purely Leichhardt. I could be mistaken on that. Don't quote me. But he's definitely never won at Leichhardt.
Definitely never won.
And I thought he'd never beaten the Tigers away from home.
That's just...
Which is quite odd because Tigers haven't been a strong team over the past few years.
Wait. That's interesting too because Jonathan Thurston played for the Bulldogs, so... Oh, wait, but he wasn't a starter though.
Yeah. And
no, not back then.
I mean, I imagine his Bulldogs career isn't really taken into account in a lot of these statistics.
No.
And, sorry, moving on to the next.
So, yeah, Tigers. Tigers tip.
West Tigers is your tip?
Yep.
Fair enough. I agree with that. Moving on, Parramatta Eels versus the New Zealand Warriors at ANZ Stadium.
Who you got, man?
I wanted to say Warriors because I backed the Warriors last week, but they just disappointed me. I mean, they didn't even score a single point.
Problem is that we don't know who their lineup is.
Exactly.
If Isaac Luca's out, Sean Johnson's out. Oh no.
Yeah. And how did Parramatta lost to the Bulldogs last week? So to me, their problems still haven't really been resolved. In which case, with or without Isaac Luke, I feel as if the Warriors are going to be strong enough to win that game.
Yeah.
I believe anyway. I think losing to the Bulldogs really is not a position you'd want to be in at this stage of the season.
Yeah.
You know, so I did tip the Bulldogs, don't get me wrong, but not a good sign for Parramatta, and I just have to give the Warriors the advantage.
If Isaac Luke plays, they're going to destroy Parra.
Yeah. Even without him?
Without him? No, well, they should win.
I'd probably still go the Warriors.
Yeah. I would like to say, too, last week our tipping was abysmal.
Was
three
it?
out of 8. 3? Yep. 3 out of 8. We all got one each. We got to try and get an 8 out of 8 round.
Yep.
That's our aim, Nick.
Okay, got to get one. All right, next tip.
So we're going, what, Tigers?
Tigers and Warriors
Tigers, Warriors.
so far.
Yeah.
Both away teams. Next up, Suncorp Stadium. The Brisbane Broncos take on the Sydney Roosters.
I'm sorry, Nick, but I'm going for the Roosters.
Okay.
I know you'll tip with your heart,
Yep.
but the Sydney Roosters look great against the Warriors. 32-0 thumping.
32-0 without a Sean Johnson or
And
Isaac
Isaac
Luke.
Luke. I know. I still believe if Isaac Luke played in that game, I don't think it would be a 32-0 thumping. I actually think the Warriors would win. He's just controlling that ruck so well.
Yep.
He's the Isaac Luke, which was the second best hooker in the world after Cameron Smith.
Yep.
That's how good he was. But he had the best running game. He had a better running game than Cameron. But Cameron overall as a hooker, as the number 9, he's the best.
There's no way to look past
But
him. Sydney Roosters.
Sydney Roosters. You have to go with them.
Fair enough. I'm tipping the Broncos.
Yeah.
No doubt. But yeah, I won't argue against you there. Moving just a few kilometres south to Seabus Super Stadium. Saturday the 19th of May, the Gold Coast Titans take on the Newcastle Knights.
That's a toughie, isn't it?
That is a tough
What
one.
do you got? Who do you got?
With Kevin Proctor out.
It's a tough one, man.
It is tough. Mitchell Pearce still isn't back, is he?
No.
Is he out for the season? Have they announced anything yet, or is it still indefinite?
I think he might be out for the season. I don't know, man. I don't know. But if he is not playing, so that's what we're thinking, is that he's not playing for a while.
Yep. Mitchell Pearce, round 19, is his expected return.
Okay.
So he will not be playing against the Gold Coast Titans. I think I am going to go the Gold Coast Titans. I think they showed signs that impressed me last week against the Storm. I mean, granted it was a pretty I don't want to say out of it, Storm side, for lack of a better word, but they still impressed me a little bit. Whereas Newcastle didn't as much. Penrith aren't playing as well as what they were at the start of the season. And yet they still lost by 12 points or 11 points, I think it was. So to me, the Gold Coast Titans have to win that at home. I'm not going to go against them.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Next up, now, I hope you don't mind, I'll take this one to avoid bias.
Yep.
1300 Smile Stadium. North Queensland take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And,
Come on.
Yeah, I'm going to break your heart like you did mine, Hoonz. I'm going to have to go the Rabbitohs. I think the form they showed last week to beat the Dragons.
And considering they were our team that we picked for performance of the week.
Exactly. I can't overlook them against a still out of form, reeling North Queensland side. And even the home ground advantage isn't much to North Queensland at the moment.
Well, no.
Support, half the stadium's filled out at games now because they're just not drawing the crowd they used to, because they're just not in a good position as a team. You know, they're not enjoyable to watch.
I'm gonna drop something, and I'm gonna say that North Queensland this week against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, we're gonna win. We're gonna win, and this is the start of our season. And you know what, Jason Taumalolo, man of the match performance. Or I'm gonna go to the other JT, the greatest player of all time, Jonathan Thurston, to drop a lot of points on the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and it's not even gonna be close because I know my Cowboys will come back.
Okay, well for the sake of the viewers out there, our tip is the Rabbitohs. Good attitude there, Hoonz, but I don't see them overcoming the Rabbitohs. Even
It's over. South Sydney's screwed.
Love the optimism. And then the final game on Saturday night, Melbourne Storm take on the Manly Seagulls at Amy Park. Who have you got?
Manly played so well. They were great against the Broncos. They came out of the dark place they were, and the Trbojevic brothers were amazing. But there's no way they are beating the Melbourne Storm at Amy Park. Wait, reversed. Cameron Smith was not playing because he just got suspended.
That's correct.
Okay, it's going to be closer than what people are thinking. But
Who is his replacement? Who is Cameron Smith's
I think it's Braden Smith. Or Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith. Young rookie,
Yep.
Kiwi. He's
Yep.
a Kiwi as well.
Okay.
And not as a clone of Cameron Smith, because it's pretty hard to clone Cameron, but a very, very talented young hooker.
Okay.
And I think that he will do a great job. And we know Craig Bellamy. They
do.
still got Billy Slater and Cameron Munster.
Yep. Yep.
I think
They've still got the devastating back line.
Will Chambers is there.
Yep.
I feel like Melbourne should win.
Yep.
I don't know if it's going to be convincing, but they should win with that devastating backline.
Yep.
And actually, for Melbourne, I think that the loss of Jesse Bromwich over the last few weeks actually has hurt them.
Yep.
You know, Dragons, they were dominated up front.
Yep.
No Jesse Bromwich.
Yep.
When is Jesse coming back? I have no idea.
Jesse is back in round 15.
Oh, wow. Wow. See, he's been such a massive blow for the Melbourne Storm. He's a leader. He's a star player.
Yep.
We'll see, man. But my tip is Melbourne. In Melbourne.
Yep.
Storm.
Did Curtis Scott play for the Storm last week?
I think so, but...
Because he is not playing this weekend. He is injured
okay.
until
Maybe
next week is his scheduled return.
Well, unfortunately...
We'll check the team list, see if he did play. But because I find him as he did play. I find him as a really strong centre. I actually, when he has the ball, he actually looks like a threat. He looks strong. He looks hard to tackle. I'm not sure where it's come from. I'm not sure what he's doing. I can't pick it, but he looks like a threat. So I think losing him in the centres might actually be a pretty damaging thing. But no, you're right. I can't go against the Melbourne Storm at Amy Park.
Nah, Storm.
Not at all. Moving on. Glen Willow Oval, Sunday the 20th of May. St. George Illawarra take on the Canberra Raiders.
You can do this one?
I'm okay. I'm on this one. So, Dragons coming off a loss. I feel as if in their form, they bounce back. They come back. They play phenomenally. Raiders coming off a loss to... Who'd they lose to last week?
Yeah, they lost. And
Cronulla. Nonetheless,
Yep.
Cronulla, an out-of-form Cronulla side.
Actually, Cronulla's won 4 in a row now.
But are they looking good?
But
to me, they're not playing good football.
Raiders blew it, man. Aiden Caesar was terrible.
He was.
He was so terrible. I was so upset.
Yep.
I was so upset because I tipped the Raiders. Or we tipped the Raiders.
Yep.
And it was pathetic just watching that game.
Yeah, it was.
And it was a clutch play right at the end of the game where Aiden Caesar tries to go for an offload and Seguiara intercepts, gives it to Valentine Holmes. All she wrote.
Yes. Game over.
I don't like Blake Austin was a huge loss earlier in the game where he got injured, but I don't like where the halves are going.
No,
the Canberra
me neither.
halves suck.
Yeah.
Because they have a devastating backline, especially that right side. They never give the ball to them. It was just excruciating to watch.
Lua and Rapana, like what?
They had to search for the ball, which they were doing, but they need to give them more space. They need an early ball. It's like James Roberts.
Yeah.
For the Bronx.
What's he supposed to do without any ball?
Exactly.
And can I just say though, I'm not confident with the Sharks. Their last 4 wins have not been convincing to me. It was the Panthers by 4. It was the Titans by 1. The Parramatta Eels by 2. And then the Canberra Raiders on a fortunate last-minute intercept based on the Raiders' mistakes as opposed to Cronulla's fantastic play style. So, to me, they're still not convincing enough to...
I think that the Sharks did what I said in last week's podcast. They grind out people, they grind out the game, and they're just a nuisance. They're pest to other teams and forcing them into stupid mistakes like Aiden Caesar and forcing that offload where he wasn't looking. He wasn't looking. He gave it.
I guess, but I still see like a
They still got classy players though. The Sharks. They still got classy players.
Yeah.
But I agree. I don't think that they've won 4 in a row now. I think. But not.
They're not playing good football, and the Raiders still lost to them.
So you already took the Dragons.
No way. I'm going to Canberra Raiders anytime soon. No. I'm going to go to St. George Illawarra Dragons. Yeah. No doubt in my mind. And moving on, sorry, went off on a tangent there. Cronulla now, at home, Southern Cross Group Stadium, versus the Canterbury Bulldogs, Sunday afternoon at 4:10.
I want to back the Bulldogs because I don't like the Sharks. I don't care what you listeners think. If you're a Shark supporter, suck for you. But it's going to hurt me to say this. But at Southern Cross Group Stadium, and with Origin around the corner, and Valentine Holmes played the way that he played on the weekend, made a crucial mistake at the start of the game, but he came home strong. I have to back the Sharks.
I completely agree.
But if the Bulldogs miss my tip up, you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy.
I'm not really going to feel bad for the Sharks if they lose at home there.
But yeah, Sharks at home. That's it. I'm not going to talk more about the Sharks.
All right, just to clarify, because we did talk a lot about every tip there. We've gone the West Tigers.
Yes.
We've gone the New Zealand Warriors.
Yep.
The Sydney Roosters.
Well, three away teams.
The first 3 away teams, that's correct. We've gone the Gold Coast Titans.
Yep.
South Sydney Rabbitohs. The Melbourne Storm. St. George Illawarra Dragons. And the Cronulla Sharks. Those are our 8 tips for this week. You agree with that? You're happy with those?
Yeah, I'm happy.
All right.
Well, not happy with your pick about the Rabbitohs and Cowboys game, but
All right, move on, Hoonz, move on. I think that pretty much wraps up this week's podcast.
yeah, man.
So thank you very much everyone for listening, and we'll see you all again next week. This is Nick
And Hoonz.
signing off.